You're watching 13 WHAM ABC. And this is 13 WHAM News at 6.
The cleanup continues tonight from the damage left behind from last night's violent windstorm. Utility crews working at this hour to repair power lines and restore electricity to hundreds of RG&E customers on Lee Road in Gates. 17 poles were knocked over. The wind sending trees into cars and homes, even damaging some businesses. And on Manitou Road, it was a frightening night for many people at Windsor Garden Apartments. Several power lines were knocked down by the wind, leaving neighbors in the dark. 13 WHAM's Samantha Miles found that many folks who lived there actually spent the day literally trapped, unable to leave their complex. Samantha?
Yeah, work crews and traffic cones kept many at Windsor Garden neighbors trapped in their apartment complex throughout most of today. Now, that's an inconvenience to some, but a relief for some others who spent hours overnight worried about surviving. Losing power presents everyone with challenges. But for those like Arlene Scrooby, it's more than just a challenge.
It was a very harrowing evening. I was in the bathroom and the lights went out. It was like 8 o'clock. Now, for me to make my way out of the bathroom, I have to use a wheelchair and a walker.
Nice job. With a broken femur, moving around her apartment in the dark was bluntly dangerous.
I couldn't find anything. I kept banging into the walls and into my furniture until I made it to this chair because I knew where it was because the phone was here.
She made it to the couch and stayed put. Even calling for help was impossible.
I had no contact with the world at all. And I tried my emergency medical alert button, and that did not work either. I was just shocked because I didn't feel safe at all. Nothing worked. I couldn't reach anyone. I tried everything I could think of, but I couldn't reach anybody.
Relief came in the form of Scrooby's caretaker, Carrie Finzer. She had to make her way past work crews and barricades just to get to her patient.
I knew she was home alone, so I was determined to get here to check on her because she told me on the phone that she had quite a scary night.
So when that face came through the door, believe me, I was very happy to see her.
She wasn't even able to contact her family who live around the corner. And so because she was at the mercy of technology and that wasn't working.
And her caretaker says it's a good idea to still keep those medic emergency necklaces, to keep flashlights charged and ready, and to also keep cameras charged because that light can guide you to safety in another power outage, just like it did for Arlene. Live in Henrietta for 13 WHAM News, I'm Samantha Miles.
All right. Hey, thank you, Samantha. Well, a second night without power, that's what RG&E has been frantically working to avoid, but that may be tough for some who lost power near Lee Road. That's where we find 13 WHAM's Jennifer Lee at this hour. Jen?
Don, several power lines went down here. Crews are still working to fix what was damaged. They've been here since last night on Lee Road. Now, we're told that it's going to take a couple days to fix at this point, but RG&E is hoping to get power back on sooner than that. No power at Lexington Court. The apartment complex's community center is the only place with electricity. Diane Wilson says it's nice to have a place to warm up and plug in.
Thank God, because a lot of times if you're staying in a single house and something like this happened, we wouldn't have no place to go. If you got an emergency, the first thing you do is grab for your phone to call somebody.
The complex on Lexington Avenue has 112 apartments. It's not too far from Lee Road, where 17 power transmission lines were knocked down. An RG&E spokesperson says they're trying to get power on as quickly as they can.
We're expecting for it to be a couple of days. We're trying to hope for earlier restoration times.
Wilson says going on a second night without power is going to be hard for her neighbors.
Get us back our power because we have a lot of senior citizens here. And a lot of us is like, some of them are on dialysis and Insulin that need to be cold. And so we really need it back really fast.
RG&E says in all of this, safety is their priority. They do ask people, if you see a downed power line, do not go near it, do not touch it. Instead, they ask you to call RG&E or report it on their website, rge.com. Reporting live on Lee Road, Jennifer Lee, 13 WHAM News.
All right. Hey, thank you, Jen. A lot of damage from the wind. The canopy of the Bolero gas station on South Plymouth also falling victim to the wind. The owner says they'll be shut down for days, if not weeks, until repairs are made. That could be tough for business. And he said it could have been deadly, though, if the situation was not handled properly.
Start making a phone call quick and give direction to employees to shut down the gas, shut down the electricity for outside, for the tanks, for that. Anything's possible to prevent fire. Gas cells is going to be shut down completely. So people not going to come over here for a lot of different reasons when they see that. And of course, we're going to lose business.
Yeah, he says the winds reach about 65 miles an hour as far as he could tell last night. You can now join our 13 WHAM News team. Share your news and weather photos at burst.com/13 WHAM. You can also check out photos sent in on 13wham.com.
Well, when we get a dramatic change like this, usually there's a number of elements that are in play. First was the wind, and secondly, of course, the temperature. Take a look at the change in the last 24 hours, a drop of almost 30 degrees in Rochester as far as the temperature is concerned. And you can see we're down to 28 degrees, and we think it's going to get even colder. Here's a look at the HD WHAM cam. I wanted to show you the current conditions because, look at this, the wind gusts. We're not getting wind gusts anymore. It's still breezy out there, but the winds have come down, obviously, substantially. And overnight, I think outside of a couple of stray lake flurries, the temperature is going to keep dropping through the 20s. Here's what you're going to need to know for the next couple of days, though. Sharply colder as we go through the next couple of days. A burst of snow is going to be expected Friday. May reduce visibility. And then I think we get into some lake effect snow off of Ontario. That's going to be Friday night. And several inches of accumulation expected going into Saturday morning. So coming up after this deep freeze, it's going to warm up again. It's going to be back to spring again. I'll show you the temperature.
All right, Glenn. Rochester police investigating vandalism at a Jewish cemetery on Stonewood Avenue. At least 16 headstones there were toppled over the last few weeks. Dozens of Jewish cemeteries around the country have been vandalized.
The silver lining in all of this that I see is that more and more Americans are coming together and standing up for each other. I'm not sure if this was a hate crime or not, but in any case, we're here to show our support.
Yeah, the Muslim community showing their support for the Jewish community. If you have information that could lead to an arrest, you're asked to call Crime Stoppers. That number on the screen, 423-9300. An Irondequoit police officer is facing federal charges tonight. Prosecutors say 50-year-old William Rosica used fake emails and cyber software to stalk his ex-girlfriend who had broken up with him. They say he tried hacking into her email account and online medical records. We're told none of this happened while he was on duty. A man who police say is a serial flasher is going back to prison. 13 WHAM cameras inside court as Paul Goodrell pleaded guilty to exposing himself to two children inside a Victor store. James Flash joining us now from the newsroom with more on what he had to say outside court today, Jane.
Well, Don, those children say he stalked them around the store before the court, rather. He apologized, but that's not what he said to us.
Our cameras were there as Paul Goodrell pleaded guilty. Two 11-year-old siblings say he was partially nude as he followed them around the Michaels store in Victor, at one point even bumping into one of them. Goodrell is a level 3 sex offender, most recently sent to prison for stalking children inside schools. Here he is on surveillance video. The rap sheet containing his criminal history is longer than he is tall. Then in 2010, prosecutors found a way to charge and convict him of a sexually motivated felony. Yet an appeals court cut 6 years off his sentence. He was paroled last year. After just 3 months, he was at it again. In Victortown Court before Justice Reed Holter, Goodrell appeared contrite. Asked if he had anything to say, he said, "I just apologize." Outside court, it was another matter.
Mr. Goodrell, do you have anything to say to these parents or their children?
No, thanks. Not right now. Well, it's only a penis.
Now, Goodrell was sentenced to 178 days for each of the victims, but he will serve 2.5 years for violating his parole. Don?
All right. Hey, thank you, Jane. And there is more ahead on 13 WHAM News at 6 tonight. What caused major damage to the DPW gate in Henrietta? And it wasn't the wind.
And I'm Mike Catalana in Indianapolis at the NFL Combine. A coach who was with Sean McDermott when they went to the Super Bowl talks about what the Bills are getting in a new head coach. Plus, of course, we'll talk quarterbacks. That comes up later in sports in a live report.
Well, it wasn't wind that destroyed an entrance gate into a parking lot at Henrietta's Public Works Yard. This security camera footage shows it was the driver of an SUV. And as 13 WHAM Sean Carroll tells us tonight in this Crime Stoppers report, that video also shows the driver spending 10 minutes trying to get out of that parking lot.
Where Highland Drive meets Calkins Road, you'll find the fenced-in entrance to Henrietta's DPW yard, a fence that's now destroyed, and thanks to this camera, we know why. Supervisor Jack Moore reviewed the footage from just before 11 o'clock Wednesday night.
Your timestamp's got 10:56-ish?
Yeah, just about that. She'll be coming right from the top of the screen. There she goes! I was lucky she didn't get hurt.
That's reason enough to chuckle a bit while watching video that shows the driver searching for a way out. At first driving around the lot looking for another entrance or exit, and then...
This is the person coming back and trying to move the gate so that she can get back out.
And you know that gate better than her, obviously.
Yeah, I don't think, Sean, you and I are going to move it together.
No, not a chance.
No,
Even as strong as we are?
And we're not wimps.
After about 10 minutes, a decision is made. Drive out, the way they drove in. That driver leaving behind a damaged fence and perhaps the video that helps lead police back to them.
I'll bet there's a friend of the town of Henrietta that would be glad to help us.
In Henrietta, Sean Carroll, 13 WHAM News.
And Monroe County Sheriff's deputies are investigating, and while the supervisors and others suspect that the driver is a woman, nobody knows for sure. If you can help identify the driver or their vehicle, you're asked to call Crime Stoppers. That number on the screen, 423-9300. Well, still ahead, a tree crashes through a kitchen in Irondequoit. Why this damage was nearly avoided. Plus, Glenn says the wacky weather continues. He'll tell us when it's going to turn dramatically warmer again. Cleanup is underway at a home in Irondequoit after a tree came down on a family's kitchen during the high winds. Richard and Linda Facino were not hurt. They've lived there 53 years. They say that tree weighs about 15 tons. A tree company was actually scheduled to take the tree down, but...
It should have came down yesterday, but it was too windy. We had it slated to go. The wind beat us to it.
Yeah. The tree company called back today to reschedule. Facino said, never mind.
Don, it's interesting. Some folks have been saying that, our weather may have contributed to the amount of tree damage in terms of temperature. And you say, why? Because we had 2 weeks of very warm weather there. Well, the ground wasn't frozen, and the roots are grabbing onto that ice that you have in the ground, and we didn't have any of that. And I suspect some of the tree damage would have been half as much given the winds. At least now, the winds have dropped off significantly. In fact, we're not getting any wind gusts at this point, but the temperature is dropping. We're at 28 degrees. Weather spotters checking in, and you can see temperatures are in the 30s and 20s. I think it was down towards Penn Yen. Roxanne saying she got a little dusting of snow down that way, but it melted pretty quickly through the afternoon with the high sun angle that we're getting now. Here's a look at the ultimate Doppler radar. We're getting some snow here, but I think it's more in the way of just snow flurries. Some of the folks out to the west may get a little dusting of snow, but I think that's going to be the extent of it. But, we follow the simulation of the atmosphere on some of this computer modeling, and you can see how this one little band kind of fades away. And then I think later tonight, there's a chance off of Lake Ontario that we may get a little more snow. The concern is actually going to be tomorrow morning. I think we're going to get a burst of snow that comes in probably mid to late morning, and that may reduce visibility. I think accumulation, though, is going to be very limited. And then we get more bands of lake snow coming in tomorrow night. Now, that's where we have a better shot of getting some accumulation. How much? At this point, I think it's going to come in small amounts. Most areas will see an inch or less during the day tomorrow. And then tomorrow evening, we're going to have to see how this plays out, but maybe another 1 to 3 inches of accumulation going into Saturday morning. There's a look at the neighborhood forecast. Look at the temperature here, and you can see some of this snow, that little burst burst of snow that we talked about. Temperatures are going to stay in the 20s the entire day. It's going to be a gusty wind by the afternoon, so you know the wind chill is going to be coming down. We'll see if we can sneak in a few breaks of sunshine later in the day. So what's the setup here as we go through time? There's another front. You know the blue line, that's the Arctic boundary. You look out to the west, there's where the mild air is, and that's going to come our way. It's going to take a couple of days, but look at the change. I think we're going to be back in the spring by Tuesday. Next week, we should be near 60, at least through this evening. Snow flurries here and there. We're going to be dropping through the 20s, maybe a couple of more snow flurries later tonight. We're down to about 21. Tomorrow morning, we're starting out at 22 degrees. Watch for that burst of snow. Again, may reduce visibility. Accumulation, though, is going to be limited. The high temperature, 26, that's it. Look at Saturday, 21 for the high temperature, but then it rebounds. Spring makes a return. We're back into the 50s by Monday. Could be near 60. You gotta love it heading into Tuesday.
All right. Hey, thank you, Glenn. Wall Street kind of following the weather pattern. Losses in financial shares dragged stocks down today. Dow was off 112.5. NASDAQ gave back 43. The S&P 500 dropped 14, and everything on our local boards down today. Toby's here. Sports coming up.
We're going to check back in with Mike in Indianapolis at the NFL Combine, what he's hearing about Tyrod Taylor and who the alternative to Tyrod could be. Now, today at the NFL Combine was all about running backs and offensive linemen. Yesterday was when we heard from Bills head coach Sean McDermott, but that does not mean that we stopped learning about McDermott today. So let's head out to Indianapolis now and check in with 13 WHAM Sports Director Mike Catalana. Mike?
All right, Toby, you know, when you come in here to a place like the NFL Combine, you talk to people, they describe Sean McDermott as a worker, a grinder, a focused person. A lot of people know him in the NFL, but no one knows him better than Ron Rivera, the head coach of the Carolina Panthers. The two were together in Carolina. Rivera, the head coach, McDermott as his defensive coordinator when the team went to the Super Bowl 2 seasons ago. Today we got an opportunity to talk with Rivera and asked him, and he said they were together back when he was with the Philadelphia Eagles. Many of those coaches went on to become head coaches. They had a certain something, and he believes McDermott has that.
I think Sean has those types of qualities. I think Sean's done a great job in terms of the staff that he's put together. I mean, he's, you know, one of the things he and I talked about was making sure in your first staff, and I didn't do this, it's something I learned, is that you have a former head coach on your staff that you can lean on and go to. Well, he hired Leslie Frazier. You know, Sean was an impeccable note taker. Every time he and I talked about something, he liked an idea, he'd write it down. I think Sean's trying to make sure he understands and does things the way they need to be done from the beginning.
Now, when Rivera took over in Carolina, he had Cam Newton, the #1 pick overall. McDermott still has a decision to make on who his quarterback's going to be. Toby?
Yeah, Mike, you mentioned that one great thing about the Combine. You're surrounded by NFL executives, reporters. You're talking to people, listening to people. What are you hearing about the Bills' quarterback situation?
That those people are talking to each other, too. And the one rumor that came out today was we know Denver has been interested in Tony Romo. A report in Denver today said if Romo were to go there, Trevor Siemian, who was the Broncos quarterback last year, could be a guy the Bills are interested in. Could be Siemian, could be somebody else, but it's a veteran, and that should clue you into the fact that there's the possibility that Tyrod could be on the move. We'll talk more about that tonight at 10 and 11. Toby?
All right, thank you, Mike. Look forward to checking back in with you later. Meanwhile, back at home, the Sabres are hosting the Arizona Coyotes, trying to snap a 4-game skid. This is their first game since the trade deadline, and their roster, well, looks exactly the same as it did before it.
I believe in fair trades. I've said that all along. I don't take any pride in making a trade and then having you guys right after that Tim got the better of that GM. That's not what I'm about. I'm just about being fair. I think I am. I think I know the value of players, and I couldn't make a trade.
Unusual to see Tim Murray not be able to make the trade. Sabres in trouble trying to pick up that win tonight.
All right, thank you, Toby. And we'll be right back. And breaking news right now, part of South Avenue closed at this hour for a police investigation. This is a live picture of the scene. We're not sure at this point exactly what is going on. Police will be briefing the media at any moment. We'll have updates on 13wham.com and, of course, at 10 and 11 o'clock tonight. Finally, our bright spot shines on Priscilla's House, the first female veterans home in the Rochester area. It's sponsored by the Veterans Outreach Center and was made possible through 2 generous donors and the support of businesses such as Isaac Heating and Raymore and Flanagan. The home will provide supportive services for female veterans. Our bright spot tonight.